Medina Spirit called on now. Center of the track, Roman Centurion. Hot Rod Charlie is in between them. Roman Centurion, Hot Rod Charlie trying to run down Medina Spirit. They're inside the 8th pole. Between horses, Hot Rod Charlie. Medina Spirit, tough as nails. Roman Centurion on the outside. Roman Centurion, Medina Spirit, and Hot Rod Charlie. What a game victory from Medina Spirit.
Welcome back to the Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this episode, of course, we will be previewing the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby, always a very pivotal race on the road to the Kentucky Derby. 100 points to the winner, 40 to second, 20 to third, 10 to fourth. Of course, the normal point layout for these final major prep races. And we have a big field, 10 horses, actually the biggest of the weekend. In terms of those Derby prep races, 10 horses here. Usually it's a smaller field. I think the last time we had a double-digit field in this race was 2017, and before that, I honestly could not tell you. Just some numbers on this race in terms of Derby starters and winners, because there are a ton. First off, just the race in itself. Bob Baffert has won it. I believe this will be he's going for his 9th win this year. He's won 2 of the last 3. And of course was second last year with the eventual Kentucky Derby winner, Authentic. Mike Smith has won 3 in a row, 2 for Baffert as well. They team up with a horse in this race. And just the Santa Anita Derby in general has been an extremely pivotal prep race. We're talking about winners. I think 4 horses that have won the Santa Anita Derby have won the Kentucky Derby in the last 10 years alone. You think about the horses that have ran really strong races. Exaggerator was second in the Derby before winning the Preakness. Honore P was 4th in the Derby last year after winning the Santa Anita Derby. So tons and tons of numbers to back this race up as a prominent Derby prep this year. 10 horses. Let's dive into it and start with the one, Roman Centurion. Only 1 win in 4 starts, but it was a very good win here at Santa Anita. Going a mile and a 16th and really ran well. He had to close from off the pace into a pace that wasn't really there for him, and still won very impressively. Next time out, second, beaten only a neck by Medina Spirit, probably the favorite for this race, and finished in front of Hot Rod Charlie by a nose, the Louisiana Derby winner. So that was probably his most impressive race to date. Took a step back in the San Felipe, and I'm going to state this now because it's going to be a recurring theme throughout this episode. Any horse that's raced Life is Good has just been beaten into submission by him, with the exception of Medina Spirit, I should say. But Life is Good in his 3 wins was brilliant beyond belief, and any horse that was behind him just was not given a fair shake because they were just destroyed. You look at the horses in this race; almost all of them have been beaten by tons of lengths by Life is Good. So without him here, it makes it a much more even race, in my opinion. I wouldn't rely on the form from that race as a reflection on Roman Centurion's ability. Instead, look to those 2 good runs at Santa Anita before that to judge him in this race. The 2 is Dream Shake, 3rd in the San Felipe off a very impressive maiden win. That was that race with Bob Baffert's Bezos, where he was so highly touted, and Dream Shake upset the apple cart in that day, winning, and then backed it up with a really good 3rd in the San Felipe. Wasn't too far off Medina Spirit. It was 2 1/4 lengths, but he ran a fine race behind him that day. That really, to me, cemented that he might have a chance in this spot. Now, Trainer Peter, it's really kind of a coin flip with how he does, especially in these graded stakes. But, Dream Shake's a good horse, and when Urton has a good horse, they usually are consistent. Now, whether that makes them a win contender or not, I don't really know. Picks up Flavian Pratt for the first time. That's obviously not a negative given how he's been going this entire meet at Santa Anita. And he should fit a good trip. And without Life is Good, makes it a much easier race for him. Given he wasn't too far behind Medina Spirit, I think he also should run just a fine race in here. Definitely not a horse who's going to run poorly in this spot. The 3 is Rock Your World. 4-1 on the morning line. Very, very short, but definitely a wild card, as he's never ran on dirt before. He's worked on it, and he's worked very well on it. And he has a pedigree that suggests dirt will be his friend, but his 2 wins to this point have been on the turf, and in some good wins, I might add. They were all both very visually impressive, beat some good horses, but this is the first time we'll get to see him on that surface. Also, first time beyond a mile. So there's some questions. I did say this horse, after his win in January on our podcast, doing our maiden watch segment, that this is a horse I'd love to see go 2 turns on the dirt. But this is some deep waters, in my opinion. There's some stakes. Grade 1 quality horses in here, and we don't really know if he's of that. So if you picked him, I don't fault you, but he's too much of a wild card in this race for me to really want to go with him. I also think he's going to be forwardly placed, which I'll get to. I don't know if that'll be the best place to be in this spot. The fourth, Parnelli, another one who's expected to be up in the fray early on. This is an interesting horse, especially last year. I was beaten in the neck in 2 maiden races by Spielberg and Hot Rod Charlie, both of who have made some noise on the Derby trail so far. Hot Rod Charlie, of course, the bigger noise. Then he broke his maiden by 6, and then he's ran 2 really bad races, beaten a combined 32 lengths in the first 2 Southern California Derby preps, the Sham and the Bob Lewis. But those were against Life is Good. The Bob Lewis was just a tough race for him. He adds blinkers now. That's going to be kind of the biggest factor that people will pick him on. But I just don't know if he has it because those last 2 runs were really bad. The Sham, I give him a pass because he was against Life is Good, not so much the Bob Lewis. If the blinkers are really that effective, then hey, power to him, and maybe he runs a huge one, but I just don't know about it. And, of course, he's going to be forwardly placed. That being said, I mentioned Bob Baffert a bunch in the intro. John Sheriff's, he's won this race 3 times, including in the last 4 years, it's been Sheriff's 2 and Baffert 2. So he's right up there. So on that factor alone, you might give him a look. The 5 is Back Ring Luck. That is your longest shot on the morning line, and I think rightfully so. Makes his first start for trainer John Sadler. Back-to-back wins, and they've been good wins. Actually, was really impressed with that allowance score in his last start. Problem was the form did not hold up. The horse who was second there, beaten just ahead, came back on an allowance a couple weeks later, didn't run well at all. I think if that horse had run better, I might have considered this horse because, like I said, really good, strong win last time out in his first start at the open level in about a year. But it just, the form now just holds no weight. First start for trainer John Sadler. That'll be interesting. Tyler Bay's aboard. That'll be interesting. But I just think he's going to be a bit overmatched in here. Might be a pace presence, though, and that should heat things up a little on the front end. The 6 is Out of the Legend for Steve Asmussen. You don't see Asmussen shipping too many horses out to Southern California. The occasional one will come. This is not one I would have expected, though. Comes off a very nice 2-length score at Oaklawn, going 2 turns for the first time. Son of Uncle Mo, comes from a strong family on the dam side, so really good pedigree behind him. And the distance was always going to be what he needed, and it clearly showed last time out. But it's a big jump going from a maiden win to a very tough Grade 1 field with plenty of Derby indications. I think something I also didn't have, I didn't mention in the intro because there's, of course, a lot to get to there, but the Southern California horses seem to tower over the Derby crop right now with how Hot Rod Charlie handled things down in Louisiana, with how the form was the Bob Lewis, and even without Life is Good here in Southern California, it's very good outside of the Baffert horses too. So I think for that reason, it's going to be tough for Out of the Legend to ship in here and win. It was a good, that first run was a tough group, I might add. The horses that were second and third in that first start for Out of the Legend have both come back to win. The winner, Blameworthy, runs in a stakes this week at Keeneland. So definitely don't toss him on that. I think it's more just big step up, and he has so much to prove in this spot. 7, Medina Spirit, morning line favorite, probably going to be your favorite for this race from the Baffert barn. 5-2 morning line. 2 wins, 2 seconds, and his only losses have been to Life is Good. He's the only horse that's really given Life is Good a scare when he was beaten 3/4 of a length by him in the Sham. Then ran that incredible race in the Bob Lewis where he wired the field somehow. The rest of the speed faded. He held off Roman Centurion and Hot Rod Charlie, and of course that form has been flattered huge with Hot Rod Charlie's win in the Louisiana Derby. Last time out in the San Felipe, questionable tactics, basically ran fullback. For Life is Good that day. There was basically 2 different races. Paid off for Life is Good. Medina Spirit still stuck around for second. But like I mentioned, you go back, watch that race, he didn't really destroy the rest of the field. He was only 2 lengths clear from Dream Shake. And given that Medina Spirit was kind of in the rest of the field behind Life is Good, run their own race, the fractions were really slow that Medina Spirit carved out in his front running affairs. So I think that's a big thing. The Bob Lewis, of course, was a huge run, but I think with the extra 16th, he gets beat by Roman Centurion and Hot Rod Charlie. That's what he gets today. And I think being forwardly placed is certainly going to be interesting to see how he handles that, how Johnny V handles that. He's no lock by any means. 100% a contender to hit the board, but I don't know if he's a win contender. The 8 is Law Professor, another one coming off of a maiden win, a huge form reversal given his first start where he was second to last in that Dream Shake maiden win. Of course, the form from that race has been flattered by Dream Shake's good run, by Bezos' win, but he really stepped it up second time out, going a mile, 2 turns, came from off the pace, and won by 2.5 lengths. It was a really nice win for this colt, but that's another one who's taken one of those big steps up against some tough horses. Now, Dream Shake was able to do it just fine, ran that good third in the San Felipe. Maybe Law Professor can do the same thing. But I don't really know. Now, his works are really, really good. I would say that. He's working very nicely into this race. Michael McCarthy probably wouldn't be making this jump if he didn't think his horse could handle that. So there are 100% positives with Law Professor, but yeah, the biggest thing is the class. Do you trust the horse coming out of the maiden win to beat some really gritty stakes competitors that have thrown it down with the best? I don't know. I can't fully ride with him in this spot. The 9 is the great one. Ran poorly in the San Felipe, but we're going to go back to that life is good, turning off the confidence of every single horse he faces logic here, because his maiden win, his run in the Low South Futurity were just too good, in my opinion, for him to not be a good horse. He was beating 16 lengths in the San Felipe, but he was also beating only a nose in the Low South Futurity as a maiden, broke his maiden by 14 lengths. That was a huge, huge effort that day. He's clearly a horse of talent. The question is, can he bounce back from that race in the San Felipe? He's going to have to be forwardly placed. It's what he does best, and that's a bit of a concern for me. Now, when he broke his maiden, he went 45-3, 110-3 for the half and the 3/4 respectively, and was full of run up to the wire. So probably not that bad going quick on the front end, but how's he going to bounce back? Because sure, life is good to knock the confidence out of him in the San Felipe, but at the same time, still fairly, well beaten by the likes of Medina Spirit and Dream Shake and Roman Centurion. So there's those questions you have to ask. Do you think he's better than that San Felipe, or do you think that was truly the best of the great one? And the 10 is Defunded, the other Bob Babbert horse. Let me tell you, this maiden win last time out was very impressive. Came from off the pace, had some bumping going on. Watch the head on, you'll see that. And he still won by 2.5 lengths. So impressive. That being said, now he's got to stretch out to 2 turns. Once again, I mean, it's the same things I've said for a lot of the horses in here. How are you gonna handle this graded stakes company? Certainly the big question. I wouldn't, put too much weight on his first ever start, because that was back in August. He probably needed that one, and then he didn't run again for another 7-8 months. So clearly some things there, but that last one was super impressive. But on speed figures, he's even a little bit lesser than a horse like Law Professor. Law Professor has some higher numbers than him out of that race. So if you were going to pick between the two, I would certainly look more towards Law Professor, because I think at that point, again, we're looking at a horse who has 2-turn experience in Law Professor compared to Defunded, who only has that 1-turn sprint win in his back pocket. So going into my picks for this race, I think I've made it pretty clear. I don't really trust many of the horses coming out of maiden wins. I think you need the stakes experience to put yourself in contention for this race. I'm going to the 1 Roman Centurion. I think 8-1 is kind of a gift in this spot. The pace is certainly going to be there. Maybe not, breakneck, but we're talking about Parnelli and backring luck. Medina Spirit likes to be up there. The Great One certainly is going to be flashing some early speed, and then you're going to have some pressers like Rock Your World and maybe Dream Shake, certainly going to be up there in the early going. So I think for that reason, you probably want a horse from off the pace if you're looking from that group of front-running horses, I guess, or close pressers to pick from. It would probably be the 2 Dream Shake, but Roman Centurion, that run in the Bob Lewis was incredible. I know it looked like he took a step back in the San Felipe. I don't really feel like that was the case, because that was just a weird race. I think he's 100% capable of bouncing back from that and running a big one in here from off the pace. He's going to love the 1 1/8. He's bred to go very, very long, and he has a lot of talent. Let me tell you, I just think he didn't get the chance to show it last time out, but he showed it 2 back with that big run in the Bob Lewis. So I'm going to go with him on top. I think Medina Spirit runs a fine race underneath. I think if you're looking for some strong value in this spot, it probably comes from the 8 Law Professor of anybody at double-digit odds on the odds board. But I really do believe that the stakes horses, the horses with stakes experience, hold the cards in this one. And I think it's probably the 1 Roman Centurion for Simon Callahan. That's all I have for you guys on this preview. Of course, main duty is to help you guys. I'm not an expert handicapper by any means. We're just, trying to find the different angles. I'm hoping to help you find those different angles you might have not picked up and see if you can pick the winner. It's going to be a fun race, of course, plenty of Derby implications. And we'll, of course, have this race covered next week here on YouTube on the Racing Rundown with our Derby Power 5 and, of course, on our weekly podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you may listen. Have a good one, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Santos to Wilson is next. On the outside, Roman Centurion's running a very big race. He's closing. Center of the track, Chasing Fame is also flying. Here's Chasing Fame coming after Roman Centurion, who takes the lead. Roman Centurion draws off by 2.5, handwritten. Star Sailor, De Jour, Chasing Fame. It's Roman Centurion, another one for Juan Hernandez.